All right, 7:43 on this Tuesday morning. And if you remember last week at this time, I had an interview with the folks who are against Issue 1 and only thought it'd be right to have the folks who are in favor of Issue 1. And I have on our WHBC Newsline right now, Chris Davey, who is the spokesperson for citizens and not politicians. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Pam, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. So let's talk a little bit about this issue, because I think this is a confusing issue for people. When you get the ballot, you read it and you're going, it can be very, very confusing. What's your thought on all of that?
Well, the politicians are trying to make it confusing, and it's not going to work. People are going to vote yes on Issue 1, because at its heart, it's quite simple. We're going to put citizens, not politicians, in charge of drawing the legislative maps. And Issue 1 will do that, and we will have a Citizens Redistricting Commission, and that will finally end gerrymandering in Ohio after a decades-long fight. I mean, this is something that's worked in other states. You can go back, actually, to Ronald Reagan. Back in the 70s, Ronald Reagan was among the conservative leaders who said, you know what, having legislators draw their own maps is an inherent conflict of interest, and we should try a citizens commission. And in the last 10 to 12 years, a number of different states have tried it, and it's worked. It's worked really well in Colorado, in Missouri, in Michigan. And there are studies that you can find on our website, citizensnotpoliticians.org, where they've looked at how these citizens commissions have worked in other states, and what they've resulted in is a fairer process, a more transparent process, and ultimately fairer maps that are more competitive and just work better for the citizens of the state.
And you said about people are going to vote yes in favor of it. And I was reading a recent survey from Bowling Green and the Public Policy Research Network, and they say that of their poll, 60% are in favor of Issue 1. And do you think that is because people are tired of politicians trying to get this right? Or, what do you think that comes from?
Well, I laugh because to say that people are tired of politicians, period, would be an understatement. And take a look at Congress. Let's just start there. And this issue would change redistricting for the state House, the state Senate, and the United States Congress delegation that comes from Ohio. So let's look at Congress. I mean, once again, we had the high noon drama just last month of, are the Congress members going to fulfill their most basic civic duty to pass a budget for the United States of America, or are we going to once again shut down the federal government and threaten a default on the federal debt, which would probably lead to a global depression? Can you count how many times we've had that high drama in the last several years?
Probably not.
Congress is completely dysfunctional and broken, and everybody knows it. In fact, the Gallup organization has done a poll of what people think of the job that Congress is doing ever since the 1970s. And in the 50 years of that poll, they are at a low water mark. Around 13% of Americans think Congress is doing a good job. I'd love to talk to those 13% of people and see what they think is working. So, yeah, people are tired of the politicians. They're tired of the discord and the dysfunction and the division, and they just want to see a government that works for them. And in other states that have done citizens redistricting commissions, like what we're proposing with Issue 1, it has worked. And in fact, the approval ratings for the legislatures in some of those states, the state legislatures, have gone up because people have seen Republicans and Democrats come together and solve problems for their state, which is that's all we want here in Ohio.
And I know that when I talked to the folks last week, that are against Issue 1, they felt it was not a promise to end gerrymandering, yet one that would cause gerrymandering. What do you say to that?
Yeah. Well, that's the old, on the schoolyard, I know you are, but what am I? I mean, it's really quite silly. It's taking semantics and twisting it around, and it's not going to work. People are going to vote yes on Issue 1. People understand that yes on Issue 1 means we're going to end gerrymandering, by putting citizens, not politicians, in charge. And if you look, and I don't know who the person was that you may have had on last week, but I'm going to guess they were probably a politician or someone working directly for the politicians. And if you look, you'll see that almost without exception, all of the people who are mobilizing against this, which is a minority of folks, it's mostly politicians who have a vested interest in the current system. And one thing I want to make sure I emphasize, this is a totally nonpartisan movement of Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, Greens, and everything in between who have come together for over a year. We collected over 500,000 signatures from Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and anything you can, every party affiliation you can imagine, from across the state of Ohio, over 500,000 signatures in all 88 counties. We broke the record for the number of certified counties. This is a groundswell, a nonpartisan groundswell, and the only people who are against it are folks, lobbyists, politicians, political insiders, who are threatened by the people rising up and taking charge of the government.
And to be clear for folks who are listening now, it would end the Ohio Redistricting Commission, which is a political group, and it would then create a non-political citizens committee, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the current Redistricting Commission is made up entirely of politicians in a system that was drawn up by politicians. Now it was approved. You know, the current system that we have was approved in 2015 and 2018 with constitutional amendments that passed by over 70%, bipartisan majorities in Ohio. But the problem was those amendments were written by the politicians, and it kept the politicians in charge. So you talk about the current Redistricting Commission. Yes, it would abolish the current Redistricting Commission. It would replace it with a Citizens Commission that would be composed of 5 Republicans, and 5 independents. Any vote that they would make, including the passage of maps, would require a supermajority with at least 2 votes from the Republicans, the Democrats, and independents, which guarantees bipartisanship. And look, the current Politician Redistricting Commission drew maps in 2001 and 2022 that were ruled unconstitutionally gerrymandered by a bipartisan majority of the Ohio Supreme Court 7 times. 7 times they passed unconstitutional gerrymandered maps and imposed them on the Ohio citizenry. And in fact, what that has led to is that Ohio is one of the 10 most gerrymandered states in the country. So we're going to put an end to that by voting yes on issue 1 this November. And voting's already underway. So I encourage everybody up there in your listenership up there in the Canton area in Northeast Ohio, get out there and vote yes for issue 1. You can do it today. Go to the early polling station.
And Chris, one more time, give folks your website.
Please visit citizensnotpoliticians.org. You can read the amendment there. You can sign up to help in any way. And appreciate you having me on today, Pam.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
Canton's Morning News.